What's going on? So I wanted to do another quick PvP build video for you guys. This one's actually going to be talking about the WhisperKnife build. I mentioned in my last video I'm not a big fan of this in the sense of the play style of it. I don't enjoy it as much as I do the assassin build. However, with my assassin, I felt like I had a lot more survivability in the battleground, which was nice, but I didn't really have enough of the offensive power to take out a lot of the veteran players. And you know, you don't want to be chasing kills in a battleground. However, it's nice to be able to kill somebody because you know, the less of their team that they have in the field at once, the more you know, the more damage your team can do against them, whether it's capping or you know, just holding them from capping. So we're just going to talk very briefly about WhisperKnife. If you saw my last video, my gear has not changed really since then. You want to just kind of get the best stuff that you can. You know, you're going to be looking at different stats. You want to kind of just maximize your stats wherever you can. In this one, I focus more on my offensive stats. You know, my defense is already maxed just because of the gear that I've got equipped on this guy. I'll show you the enchantments in a second, but you definitely want your power to be capped, your crit strike, crit severity to be capped. In this one, I've got more combat advantage in this loadout, which is great. Accuracy is also equally important, I would say, just because you want to be able to hit your target. Looking back at the gear for my armor enchant, I'm using Shadowclad. I'm going to rank that up a little bit today too. The Shadowclad is nice if you're not familiar with it because when you're receiving damage, each hit adds 4% to your deflection and 2% to your defense for 6 seconds. This effect can stack a maximum of 8 times and expire when you successfully deflect. The thing about this is when that hits the 8 stacks, it actually turns your character invisible for a couple seconds, which is monumental in PvP. You know, they can't. It's very, very difficult to hit you if they cannot see you. And then for my weapon enchant, I'm using my Vorpal. Again, with this one, your crit strike and crit severity is increased by 3%, and then your encounter at will's daily powers deal 6% bonus damage. Right? So it's pretty nice. For my defensive slots, I'm using Vicious, which gives you deflect and critical avoidance. And my offensive slots, I'm using Savage, which gives you critical strike, critical severity. I will note as well, in the utility slot, I still see people using a lot of tacticals and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it. I prefer to use the dark enchantments. I don't even have mine ranked up completely, but the reason for that is because it gives you Forte, and after the combat change, this is a new stat that we have, and Forte actually gives you 3 different stats, right? It depends on your loadout and it depends on your class, but for me, for example, it gives me power, combat advantage, and deflect severity. So as I increase my Forte, I'm actually increasing 3 stats at once. So you want to, in my opinion, you want to try to max out your Forte. It makes it easier to bring up the other stats you might be lacking in. One side note I did forget to mention in my last video, I'm actually running Sandy's attack pants. This can be found through the mysterious merchant in your guild. It can be difficult in the sense because sometimes guilds don't really call in that merchant very often. There's not a lot of viable gear for like in-game PvE. And I believe when you call in the merchant, the gear that they have is actually at random. So if you ever find this in your mysterious merchant, I highly suggest buying multiple pairs. I have one on like 7 different characters at this point. The cool part about it is whenever you're damaged for more than 15% of your maximum HP in a single blow, you will daze your attacker for 3 seconds. It only happens once every minute. However, this is very good against anybody that deals, well, pretty much anybody that deals 15% damage, you know, in a single blow, because you daze them. Specifically, this is really good against rogues. But again, you know, if you have, it could be a wizard, it could be a ranger, it could be a warlock, anybody that's going to hit you really hard, this gives you a 3-second window to hopefully retaliate, get out of the way, retreat, whatever it is you have to do. So you do lose a little bit of item level, and the stats, you know, they're not crazy. There's defensive stats, so the deflect and critical avoidance is nice on these. But yeah, I definitely forgot to mention that. And my last video, my rings, I'm using these 2 because this one gives your counter powers 3% more damage, and this one gives your melee powers 3% more damage. So it's a nice little 6% damage. Most of our damage is going to come from, you know, our encounter powers anyway. And one other thing that I did change up, So Nightcrawler was actually the guy helping me out with this build. He has his own YouTube page as well, which is Chaotic Neutral Gaming. I'm gonna share a link to that in the comment section, so check it out. He's got a lot of really good information out there, and he's got a lot of content on his page, so it's definitely worth taking a couple minutes there to go to Chaotic Neutral Gaming. Yeah, so he suggested using this, the Wyvern Venom coated knives. Now, before I was using Halaster's Blast Scepter. The difference is, this one hits for 31,520, and your target's damage resistance is lowered by 15%, which is great. This one has a couple benefits that I want to talk about really quickly. So activating this throws an array of knives coated with the Wyvern Venom, which deals 14,000 physical damage to those nearby enemies and envenomates them, dealing 7,000 something poison damage every 1 second for 10 seconds, right? So the damage is good. Obviously damage is always good. That's what we're here for. I want to say something about the spread. If you see the targets in front of me, see how I hit all 3 of them, and now all 3 of them have a damage over time on them. This is actually very, very useful if you're fighting against a stealth opponent. You can't always see where they are, right? But you hit them with that. Even if you don't hit them and you can't see where they are, you know where they're not. So you can easily just turn to the side wherever you didn't aim at, and you can get a general direction of where the enemy's at. That's one benefit. The second is the damage over time. Again, this was Nightcrawler's advice to me, which makes complete sense. Makes a lot of sense completely. Anytime you do a damage over time, it prevents the enemy from escaping to a certain extent, right? So if, let's say, it was a stalemate and they know, they're wasting their time fighting you on that node, maybe they want to run off to another node, help out their allies or whatever. As long as they have a damage over time, even if they're out of combat, they're not going to be able to get on their mount. Well, it will prevent them from mounting. So the less amount of time that they have to run around on their mount, the slower they're moving, the less amount of time they potentially have to travel between nodes, which gives your team a nice little advantage there. Now, the third main part about this is, instead of the 15% damage buff, it's only 12%. But that's not bad. It's only a 3% difference. And additionally, it causes your target to deal 12% less damage. And again, you can hit... I just hit 3 of them at once. All 3 of them are going to take 12% more damage, and all 3 of them are going to deal 12% less damage. So we're just going to go over the powers really quickly. I'm going to go in order from the top, but then I'm going to show you the actual rotation and the different effects that come into play using this build, right? So Disheartening Strike, I just put it on my L2. Magnitude 40. The applied effect is a damage over time of 75 for a 10-second duration. And again, any kind of damage over time is going to prevent them from mounting. Of course, also stacking a bunch of different dots on your enemy can quickly bring down their health. The second effect of this is that it increases the target's damage taken from projectile and physical attacks by 5%, right? In R2, I'm using Shuriken Toss. It's an AoE 60 magnitude. It's very quick. The range is 50, which I believe all of these are. Yeah, except for your melee one up there. Yeah, it's just I don't use it very often, but when everything's on a cooldown and you're still running away, you can be literally running backwards and hit them with that and do a little bit of damage. It all adds up. I have Lashing Blade slotted to square. I have Vengeance Pursuit to circle, and I have Shadow Strike and triangle. Courage Breaker I have as one of my dailies. I don't use it as often as I use Lurker's Assault. And again, I'm going to talk about all this in just a second here. Skillful Infiltrator, I use this mostly to try to cap out my deflection and critical strike. There are other variances you can use, especially if you want to be in a more stealthy kind of build. And then I use Dagger Threat. Your range attacks deal up to 7.5% more damage based on how close you are to your target. You gain the maximum benefit from this class feature when within 20 feet of your target, right? And then we're going to go down here to the feats really quick. Last Moments, you deal up to 10% more damage to foes as their health bar diminishes. This bonus is doubled while in stealth, which is excellent against like a tank or a healer or anybody that's really kind of, very resilient in the battlefield. Because as a rogue, we're doing a lot of burst damage here. So all these attacks we're gonna try to hit them very, very hard, very, very quickly. So that extra 10 or 20% potentially is quite a bit of extra damage you can get when your target's wounded. Your at wills drain 10% of your stealth meter instead of 15, and your passive stealth drain is reduced by 50%. This helps just basically keep you in stealth longer. And again, you know, there is an alternative build with this kind of loadout that you could just increase your stealth by like a monumental amount. Actually, Nightcrawler has a pretty good build. I believe he's going to be making a video soon. We tested it the other day, and he stayed in stealth for like 45 seconds plus, like close to a minute. It's a ridiculous amount of time to be invisible in a battlefield. But one with the shadows, every 20 seconds you gain one with the shadows. It causes your next encounter power to refill half your stealth meter, and it grants you 5% damage buff for 10 seconds. Very, very nice. Most of the time, if you go 20 seconds between fights, which, you know, it happens fairly often, that's an extra 5% damage you get, and again, refilling half your stealth meter is going to keep you stealth for a longer time. Shadow of Demise. I feel like this is really the main feat a lot of this build is based on. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to go through everything and explain how the rotation works. But so while you're in stealth, your encounter powers add the Shadow of Demise effect to the target for 5 seconds. 30% of the damage you deal to this target is dealt again when Shadow of Demise expires. And then I use Gutterborn's Touch. So dealing combat advantage damage grants you the Gutterborn effect for 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, your range powers deal 5% more damage. Of course, combat advantage is... In PvP, you definitely have to have your allies around you to get combat advantage, because you don't have... you don't have your companions, of course. But there's various ways to get combat advantage. One of the pretty simple ones is if you use Smoke Bomb when you're in stealth, all you and your allies are granted combat advantage. So it's just a nice little perk, I feel like, compared to this. This is nice too. When you're in stealth, you deal up to 20% more damage based on how full your stealth bar is. But in this build, I don't actually stay in stealth very long. Like I said, for the alternative build, maybe this would be a nicer perk to choose. So it's kind of up to your discretion now. So now I'm going to really quickly show you the rotation. I'm going to do it in slow motion, so you're not going to see the full effect of the Shadow of Demise. But I have another little clip that I'm going to add that shows the full rotation, hopefully within 5 seconds, right? So I start with L2, gives a 5% damage boost, right? Cool. And the damage over time, as you can see there, is nothing incredible. I start with Circle. I actually don't go into stealth first when I use this, just because it's so many more. It's one more button to click, and I try to keep it as simple as I can. But for the sake of the video, we'll go L2, stealth, circle, Wyvern Venom knives, mount, triangle, circle, square. Of course, you want to do that much faster, right? But you can basically pull off all of your attacks if you do that rotation, and I'm going to show you what happens. So starting off, one with the shadows. Because you're outside of combat for 20 seconds, you gain one with the shadows, right? Your next encounter power refills half the stealth meter. That's great. That's not what I use this for. That 5% damage buff for 10 seconds is what this is all about, right? So you open with your disheartening strike. It gives you a 5% damage buff. If you were 20 seconds, in without combat, you have one with the shadows. So that's automatically starting you with 10% damage buff alone. Okay. Now, whether you stealth first or not, Vengeance Pursuit. The first attack deals 200 magnitude, and as you attack, you're marking your target. Now, a side note here, this is very nice. You hit them once, now they're marked, right? You got a couple seconds. You can run around, whatever. If you press it again, it teleports you there, and you deal, I think it's 700 something magnitude. The cool part is when you press it a second time, it also frees you from any control effects. So that's why one of the things is it's important to get that off when you first start combat with a character, because a lot of characters have certain control effects, right? So when you first see them, you hit them with that, they can stun you, they can freeze you, they can try whatever, and you press circle again, it breaks you out of that effect, teleports you directly on them, and attacks, right? So that's just a side note about that ability. Now back to the rotation. So stealth, first you hit L2, that gives you the 5% damage on top of your one with the shadows, so that's 10% damage total. You stealth, you hit them with circle the first time to mark them. This also refills half your stealth bar, so you should be pretty much back to full stealth still. Then I go to my coated knives. So you hit them for that little damage over time, which is awesome. They take 12% more damage, and they deal 12% less damage. Then I hit them with my mount power, 3000 magnitude. Okay, back to the rotation here. After I hit him with my mount power, I hit him with Shadow Strike, 715 magnitude. Again, this refills 20% of your stealth on the hit. It increases the damage taken from projectile and physical attacks by another 5%. If you are stealth, it does not remove stealth, and it can daze them for 3 seconds. A lot of effects going on here. Now, this is pretty far into the rotation, but you can do 2 more things. You press circle again to reactivate the ability. Does not if you're stealth, it technically doesn't break stealth, so you have to do this very quickly for the whole effect to work, right? But the follow-up becomes a single target attack, dealing 715 magnitude, and stuns them for 1 second. Now again, because that follow-up, remember, that follow-up teleports you right on top of them. I follow with Lashing Blade immediately, right? So at the very end of your rotation, you have Lashing Blade for 715. There has been times, not in the full rotation, but I've tried this before. There's still time where, because this doesn't break stealth and it teleports you directly there, if you hit Lashing Blade quick enough, I think you still technically are stealth, which adds another 50% additional critical severity. Now, my critical severity is pretty much capped once I have all my, when I'm in combat and all the buffs are going off. So it's not a huge difference, but right. So there's your full rotation in the slow motion. Now again, your critical severity, movement speed, and deflection, all that from Skillful Infiltrator, which is great. The second part of that is if you're doing all of this within 20 feet, you're getting an additional 7.5% damage within 20 feet. Now, in the next video clip, you're going to see, but Shadow of Demise is really going to bring this whole build together, because if you can pull off that entire rotation in 5 seconds, 30% of that damage is going to be dealt again when Shadow of Demise expires. And you will see that happen in the very next clip there. So again, we will talk more a little bit about the boons in this one. For the campaign boons, I did critical severity, trying to max that out. Control resist, always nice, 10% control resist. And then if you are a DPS roll, incoming damage reduced by 5%. Nice little bit to your survivability. Stronghold, doing critical strike. Defense, doing my potions, right? We don't have a PvP boon, don't really care. You know, basically you're just going to try to cap your stats here that you can. I do want to note again, like I did in my other video, these if you put points into lingering medicine, it increases the effectiveness of healing potions by 1% per rank, and at 5 ranks you have a chance to continue your heal for 30 seconds. It doesn't say what percentage that chance is, but as you can see, I have this in 3 different rows, so I have 15% extra effectiveness on my healing potions and 3 different chances to increase the healing for 30 seconds. And then on my tier 2, I choose Forte, because again, maxing that out is going to increase 3 stats at once. Recharge speed, just because it lowers the cooldown of your encounter powers, right? So that's always nice. This one, chance on encounter used to do the following: decrease your target's defense by 1% per rank, which will be 3%, or doing an attack equal to 120% of your weapon damage plus 10% per rank. I don't know how that works actually right now, because they got rid of weapon damage as far as on your actual weapon, so I'm sure it's some kind of percentage of your base damage. I don't know the math behind that. And then the third would be increase your action point gain by 0.5% per rank for 10 seconds. Again, companions, none of this matter in PvP. I will briefly talk about this because I did switch back to my giant toad versus my tunnel vision. Tunnel vision, I feel like, is faster, but I've noticed that when you use it, there's a brief little pause that your character does before it can go back to moving around. It's almost like you stun yourself. It's only half a second, but it makes a difference. And I felt like with the frog, it takes another second for it to work, and it could potentially, in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to dodge. However, it doesn't interrupt your flow of movement. So to me, this is actually more important. All right, we're going to try this again. Full 100% rotation in 5 seconds, hopefully. So there at the bottom, you can see your Shadow of Demise deals 273,083. Yeah, so for example, my Lashing Blade hit for 397, 294. Shadow Strike hit for 194, 557. As you can see, it's an insane amount of damage that this can add to your rotation, and it's just because it's a feat. It's not even an encounter power. So again, I will say, you know, in a perfect world, that seems pretty decent. That actually took me 5 tries here to pull off correctly. It's very difficult to do something like that in an actual match of PvP because, you know, there's so much going on around you. You may be being attacked. Maybe they're being attacked, which actually is another note because at the same time, if you're dealing combat advantage damage, we could have been doing an extra 5% more damage on top of all that too. So that means if you had an ally on any of the other sides adjacent to your enemy, we would have been dealing an extra 5% damage, right? So there's a lot of ways that can go. Of course, you know, if you can't pull up, it's going to be very rare that you pull off that entire rotation in a match. But, you know, you could still, you hit him with your L2. You open up with, like, that's a decent rotation. That's just all your encounter powers, right? And then what a lot of times I'll do is I'll save my artifact and my frog for a completely separate encounter, and then you go right back into your rotations, you know, so it gives you a little bit of versatility there. Yep. And yeah, so that's why Shadow of Demise is a very powerful feat to have on your WhisperKnife build.